Gee Ranasinha. What a interesting conversation. A pure marketer, Gee is. He's not a digital marketer. He makes a clear distinction. He's a marketer. Saying digital can be, in his eyes, quite redundant. But a fascinating discussion. I open with the question, do people like to buy and not be sold to? There's a distinction there. And we talk about the difference between business to business and then of course business to consumer purchasing. But he's also a professor. You could tell he's been studying it for a long time. He's been a marketer for a long time. He knows he's got a fascinating background. He's met Steve Jobs. He can memorize a deck of cards. He's just a fascinating man, well-rounded, fascinating man. But we talk just focus on marketing. I do ask him for small to medium businesses, what should they look for when hiring a digital marketing or a marketing agency? It's a great conversation. We also talk about automation and where that plays a role, but just how important to have marketing along with sales for growth. It's a great conversation with Gee. I really, really enjoyed it. Thanks for listening. Hi, I'm Joey Pinz. People ask me, how did I lose 130 pounds? The quick answer is always discipline. I started my business, wasn't paying attention to my health, was eating too much, drinking too much sweets. My daughter was born. Next thing I know, I'm pre-diabetic, I have hypertension. I knew something had to change. Discipline. I, like many of you, have faced many challenges in your career, in your family, in your life, in your faith. How did you attack them? How did you approach them? How did you solve them, hopefully? It all had to have some degree of discipline. I'm also asked, how did you found and start a tech business that lasted over 25 years? Discipline. I was committed to it, enjoyed technology, didn't enjoy some aspects of it, but knew it was necessary. Discipline. Our podcast mission, how do we use discipline to better ourselves and society? Join me, please, as I talk to interesting people and discuss how they use discipline in their family and their passion and their careers and how it helped them. Our podcast vision, growth through learning from others. Joey Pinz Disciple Conversations. It'll be light and serious. Join us, please. Thank you for consideration. Thank you so much for being here. I'm very, very excited to talk to you. Very excited. Do buyers or just consumers love to buy but hate to be sold to?
I think, firstly, it depends what we're talking about, right? Whether we're talking about B2B, B2C, business to consumer or business to business. Now, the actual modus operandi of selling may be the similar, because at the end of the day, you're selling to a human being, right? But the biggest difference between B2B and B2C is that in B2B, most often you're having to convince more than one decision maker. And as the purchaser, it's not your money. So what happens when companies buy stuff, even small stuff, they often don't end up buying the best, whatever the best is being measured by. What they end up doing is a risk aversion tactic. And what they do is they buy the least risky, what looks like the least risky that isn't going to come back and bite them on the arse if it all goes south, right? Do you remember years and years ago, 50, 70 years ago maybe, there was a saying that went something like, no one ever got fired for buying IBM.
Then moved to Cisco, and it moved to a couple of the other big ones. But yeah, we've heard it, certainly.
Right, insert brand name here as we've advanced along the line, right? So what that actually meant didn't mean literally buying IBM. It meant that going against the prevailing wind of popularity of product may work out for you. Buying against the grain, you might get something with more features, more functionality, better, faster, cheaper, whatever. But if it doesn't, if it takes a little bit longer to deploy, if it falls over after the 6 weeks, that's your ass. Okay. And if it's a big organization, that could cost you dearly. It could even cost you your job. And even if it doesn't cost you your job, forever, as you walk through the corridors of that organization, you will always be known as, that was the person who made us buy X. And it can put a restriction on how far you move up that corporate ladder. Who knows what it could be? So what happens is buyers buy in herds, in packs. They don't buy outside of a 3 to 5 vendor consideration set. Okay. So you're in the market for a whatever, a bit of software, a bit of hardware, a widget, a glass, a pen, or whatever it is. Okay. So you will have an idea in your mind as to the top 3 or 5 products or brands that you will select. And 9 times out of 10, you will make a decision based upon those existing brands. Nobody goes through every single permutation of every single vendor that exists in a particular industry or category and maps out some huge big mother of a matrix with like dots with features. No, but nobody does that, right? What you do is you probably ask your network, hey, I need a new X. What do you get? Oh, we bought the Okie Kokie 2000. Oh, really? How is it? Yeah, it's not bad. I tell you what, if it does fall over every now and again, but the trick is, whatever. Okay. And that's where you get your base position. Now, occasionally, very occasionally, out of those 3 or 5, it's always an odd number for some reason. I don't know. I think it's the way the mind works. The mind finds it easier to remember odd numbers than even numbers. Every now and again, there will be a curveball. There will be somebody who will recommend, I know it's not the usual route, but we had a look at X and oh my goodness, it was a really good product. It did this, it did that, and it was, cheaper to run or easier to deploy or whatever it may be. And that may be outside of the usual consideration choice. But that happens rarely. And quite often, even when it does happen, you still end up buying the category leader or certainly the top 3, which perpetuates the whole thing, right? You have this share of voice metric within marketing. So the larger incumbents within a category, not only do they get more notoriety, are they more well known in their category, but the individual customer order value is quite often larger. Because again, that comes back down to trust, right? Because at the beginning, no matter who you are, what you're selling, everybody's selling the same thing, right? We're selling trust. Because if I don't trust you, I'm sure I ain't going to buy from you, right? And especially in a B2B aspect, which, for the reasons that we've just discussed. So in which case, are we being sold to? No. What we're trying to do as marketers is to create what's called in marketing language mental availability. Salience, if you want to be posh. Mental availability. What does that mean? It means when I think about the category that your product exists in, I think of you. So if I'm thinking of a cold, sparkling beverage in a cola direction, I'm going to think of probably 2 contenders, right? Coca-Cola and Pepsi. And, these companies have spent gazillions so that the creation of those mental structures when we're in the position to buy is very well developed to the point where we will go with one or the other, whatever preference we have, or, as is in the case of most people, don't really care which way or either, right? I mean, if you ask for a Coke and they've only got Pepsi, it doesn't mean you're not going to have Pepsi, does it? Really? You're going to say, yeah, okay, well, I don't really care. But that's a different subject matter topic. But quite often, what the most effective marketing, and we should talk about efficiency versus effective marketing later on. But one of the most effective marketing tools is the withholding of information when communicating your value proposition to your target audience.
Like teasing them?
Not quite teasing them, but giving them a certain amount of information and having them complete that information so that they're joining the dots themselves. Because what happens then is it's not your idea, it's their idea. You see what I mean? No one likes to be talked to. Nobody likes to be talked at. Nobody likes to be sold at, right? And you look at the best salespeople, what do? They ask a bunch of questions, right? And they get you, based upon the answers that you give, to come up with a position on the decision of the purchase that you're going to make. Right? They lead you down a narrative that you are being guided down so that you make that decision yourself. And that's a lot more powerful. Now, obviously that's open to abuse, right? And we're seeing that 24/7, 365 in all sorts of channels. But the most effective salespeople are the ones that aren't selling, but they're helping people to buy. If you get the difference.
Creating a buying environment.
Yeah, an environment conducive to sales. So it's more like a consultative sale, right? It's actually taking the time. It's giving a shit about what the customer problem is, the underlying customer problem. The customer problem isn't I need to buy this widget. That is the customer coming up with a diagnosis to a problem that they have perceived, right? What our job as salespeople is to come up with that diagnosis by asking the right questions, by looking at the symptoms, and then proposing a solution. The most apt and correct solution that befits the customer, even if that means that the solution is not the solution that we ourselves are selling. Which is hard for especially owner, founder, CEOs to hear, right? Because it's, those sort of people is, the answer is yes. Now, what's the question? Our target market is everyone, and, all that sort of crap. But since we can't be all things to all people, and we certainly need to pick our battles, it's better to be, a big fish in a smaller pond, isn't it? Which comes right back down to the basics of marketing, of one strain of that being positioning, which unfortunately for especially small to medium-sized businesses, which perhaps don't see the value in taking the time to do proper positioning work, don't actually put those pieces in place, and so create a dilute and indistinct message to the market, which confuses their ideal customer profile. Are you this or are you that? I'm not sure. Because as consumers, all of us as consumers, what we want to do is pigeonhole, right? This company does this, right? We want to put a square block in a square hole. This does this, and it's very clear. And when you come up with a business which says, oh, we do this and this and this and this and this and all sorts of other things, it doesn't fit with that logic in the minds of the consumer. Hang on, I thought these guys did this. Now they're doing that. Hang on, this is not where I was. And so it doesn't make things easy. And then we pile in, a ton of messages all in one go. So we try to see everything in one go. So it's just like it's like a shopping list, a list of bullet points. And there's plenty of anecdotal and empirical evidence that shows that the more messaging that you produce in one hit, the less the understanding and the recollection of those messaging after the fact. So if you've got 3 different things that you need to say to your customer, create 3 different messages, 3 different sets of communications, maybe 3 different ads, however you're doing it, whatever makes sense. But people aren't doing this, and then they're wondering why their marketing sucks. I'm talking a lot, Joe. You're not saying anything. This isn't good or bad.
I love it. Do buyers care about brands, Gee?
Sorry, I lost you then.
Do buyers care about brands?
I've lost you. I've lost sound.
Oh, what happened?
Oh, no. Yeah, I've got sound back again. Sorry, could you repeat?
Do buyers care about brands?
Yes and no. Firstly, and this is as a brand strategist, okay? Buyers, all buyers, consumers, B2B, whatever, okay? They care about brands hugely, hugely less than we think they do. Okay? Nobody really cares, has a relationship with our brand. For vast majority of things, apart from the lunatics who sort of queue up outside Apple stores at 6 a.m. and stuff like that, those guys, right? But for everybody else, for people with lives, right? nobody does stupid shit like that anymore. Okay, it's pointless. Where brand comes into play in a very strong way is at 2 levels. Certainly at a commodity level, if you're selling paper clips or socks or something, right? As a differentiator down there, brand can help you very well. The other way that brand helps, I think, is as a sort of insurance policy. It's as a quality variance reduction exercise, right? Let me give you an example, because you've got a blank look on your face. So I think I need to give you an example.
Just soaking it in, Jay. Yeah.
Okay. So imagine I'm in the market for a new TV, and I've pored over the specs and I know exactly what I want, and I'm comparing like the resolutions, and it's a 4K this, and it's the HDR that, and it's extended color this, and all sorts of crazy terminology which you've never heard before. OLED, no LED, all of this crap, right? And I've come up with 2 possible choices that I'm going to buy. One of them is a name that you and I know. Let's say Samsung. We love you, Samsung. We love everybody, but we'll say Samsung because Samsung make TVs for many other people as well. The screens in Samsung are used in all sorts of things. They're used in iPhones. They're used in all sorts of things. So Samsung's a good example. Okay, so we can get a Samsung TV, top of the line, a whole thing, wonderful piece of machinery. Or we can buy some unknown brand from Southeast Asia something with a weird name that scores 85 at Scrabble, right? Which is considerably cheaper, but the specs are the same. Okay? So, with all things being equal, you've got a decision on your hand, right? You've got a gamble on your hand, right? Do you save some money, go with a no-name, and roll the dice? Or do you go with the Samsung, which is a brand, you may have not had a Samsung TV in the past, but you know Samsung make TVs, and maybe your friend, your next door neighbor, your mother-in-law has a Samsung TV, right? And it's always there, it's always on, and you've never heard a bad word said against it. So you can choose to spend the extra so that you know what you're buying is going to be. Because of the value of the brand, you know that buying a Samsung TV is going to give you a range of pleasurable, acceptable pleasure. Okay? It's either going to be, oh my God, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. Oh my, I got to go out in the street and tell everybody this is just absolutely friggin' awesome, right? Or it's like, well, yeah, this is pretty good. I'm happy with my choice. This is pretty darn solid. It's robust. It's great. Okay. It's unlikely that you're going to get, what the hell is this absolute piece of crap? Right? Because you're buying a Samsung. Now, if you buy the other guys, you may well get that same feeling. Oh my God, this is amazing. Why isn't everybody buying this? They're wasting their money by buying a brand name, right? But equally, you could be, what an absolute waste of money. The biggest pile of excrement I've seen in my life. What the hell was I thinking? Right? So then you've got to go through the rigmarole of, sending it back and hoping they'll take it back and give you a refund and don't get store credit and all the rest of it. Yeah. So that's where the power of the brand comes in.
Right.
But I think it gets worse, because if you bought your Samsung TV and it came with, say it came with a 2-year warranty, and after 1 year and 364 days, it blew up, right? And you told that story to anyone who'd listened, they'd all say, oh, poor you, Joe, what hell happened? That's a really bad bit of luck there, right? Everybody would be consoling you, buying you a drink, doing whatever they could. Poor Joe, what a victim, right? But if you bought the other TV in the same situation with a 2-year warranty and it blew up after 1 year and 364 days, right? You'd be the schmuck. They'd be saying, well, see, why'd you buy that piece of crap? Of course it was going to explode. Of course it wasn't going to last. That, my friend, is the power of the brand. And that's why a phone with a fruity logo on it can be sold for double the price of a phone without a fruity logo on it. And the difference is the narrative that we tell ourselves.
But with a smaller purchase, like a $25 purchase, and with 2 brands or 3 brands, and one of them you kind of heard of and the others you didn't, there's not much of a wrestle at that point. It really is price, or would it be price, maybe another factor, color, etc. But it wouldn't be such a long decision as a large purchases like the ones you just mentioned.
It depends what $25 buys you. If it's $25 for a packet of chips, that's an expensive $25.
Yeah.
Right. If it's more of a commodity type purchase, then absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree with you. There is no differentiation down at that level, right? don't know about you, but I personally don't care what brand of paper clips I buy.
Right.
Right. I don't think there's any innovation in the paperclip space that I'm aware of.
Nor am
Don't
I.
think AI has come into the paperclip world.
I wonder. I'll be looking this up later.
I think you should. We may be unaware. What are they not telling us?
Yes.
Right. It all goes back to Clippy in
That's
Word,
right.
remember?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Microsoft.
Oh,
yes.
I think you'll want to write a letter. Right. But but the thing is, if you're down there and you're playing in that space, brand is probably all you've got. Because just by the fact that it's hard to differentiate one player from another, the only real differentiating factor left is price. And if you're competing on price, that's a downward spiral. That's a slippery slope, right? That's a race to the bottom, and that's not a race that you want to win.
That's right.
Because no matter who you are, no matter what you're selling, there is always somebody somewhere who's prepared to sell it for less.
Gee, your firm, Kexino, is it a marketing agency or a digital marketing agency?
You have done your homework, haven't you? You naughty little thing asking me questions like that. We are, and I am proud to say, we are a marketing agency. And I push back on any accusation that we are in any way a digital marketing agency. Now, does that mean that we don't do digital? Of course not, right? I'm not a Luddite, right? I don't drive a horse and cart. I'm not Amish, right? It'd be very, very difficult to be an Amish marketing agency, wouldn't it? just think of that.
Hear ye. Yeah.
Hear ye. That's Amish TikTok.
That's right. Yeah.
What I'm saying is that two things. Firstly, in this day and age, calling anything digital is just superfluous. It's redundant. Because everything is digital, right? TV is digital. Radio is digital. Billboards are digital. Cinema is digital. Print is digital, right? So it's irrelevant. It's like saying, are you an electrical agency? Well, yeah, we use electricity. But what's that got to do with anything? Okay, so that's number one. But I think what's more serious is that it's not only an outdated term, but I think it puts the focus on the wrong thing. Because digital, in the way that we're describing it, it isn't a noun, isn't even an adjective. It's a channel. And our job as a marketing agency, and I would contend the job of anyone who dares to call themselves a marketing agency, is to use the most appropriate channels of communication to address a particular target audience group. Now, that may well be digital, but not necessarily. Right? The thing that's worked unbelievably well, even pre-COVID, but certainly post-COVID, which is surprising to a lot of people, mailers. Sending stuff in the post. And why? Because it's novel, because not many people do it. Right? Everybody knows it costs nothing to send an email. And everybody knows that it costs something to send a letter. And unlike an email, if I send an envelope addressed to you that's handwritten with a stamp on it, I guarantee you will open that letter. I mean, you might throw it in the bin straight after, right? But you will open that. I don't know any email service on the planet which can guarantee you an open.
Hmm.
And the open rates in emails are like 0.00 whatever, right? So it's a numbers game. It's ridiculous, right? So at least you get the head start with the open rates. Now, obviously, you've got to have a message. You've got to have a piece of creative that's enveloped that, and that's regardless of channel. And this is where many businesses, especially the smaller businesses, this is where they trip up. Because they've spent all their time, money, and effort thinking about customer profiles and audience segmentation and geolocation and all of this techie bullshit. And they've forgotten about the meat in the sandwich, which is the message. The creative implementation of a particular message. Because they're all working to deliver a campaign at a particular budget. And since you can quantify all of the other component parts within that system quite with a level of granularity, the part that you can't quantify that easily just happens to be the most important part, which is the creative execution, right? You know how much postage costs. You can find that up on the USPS website, right? You know how much an envelope costs, right? You know how much paper costs, printing costs, all of that stuff, right? You can work that out, stuff. You're doing Facebook ads, Google ads, Instagram ads. Everybody knows how much that's going to cost. You can cost everything out. But you can't say, okay, for this particular campaign, I want to spend $475 worth of creativity. What does that mean? Nobody knows. So what happens is, when the belts get tightened, that gets thrown under the bus. And yet, so what we do instead is we automate. So we create all of these customer profiles and all of this MarTech stuff, and we throw royalty-free images into Canva templates, and we generate 50 different headlines and 100 different sub-headlines, and we throw that into the MarTech system for it to vomit out various permutations, which then go off to be sent out on this quasi-programmatic delivery mechanism. And the one that gets 0.1% greater eyeballs, we call that a success. It's not marketing, is it? It's a crapshoot, right? So then people turn around and say, well, all this digital marketing, it's all bullshit. It doesn't work. Of course it doesn't work. Of course it doesn't work, because you've exorcised the creativity out of the equation. That's no longer part of it. So we're optimizing the system for the wrong thing. We're optimizing the system for efficiency rather than effectiveness, which brings us nicely onto the subject of marketing efficiency versus marketing effectiveness. Did you notice that segue? It was quite smooth, right?
Smooth.
You're smooth as a baby's tushy. So what do I mean by effectiveness versus efficiency? The problem with 99% of marketing, and especially digital marketing, is that the companies who are spending the money are optimizing for efficiencies rather than effectiveness. And you can't blame them, because pretty much every other part of the business is optimized around an efficiency maxim. If you look at R&D, if you look at manufacturing, if you look at engineering, all of these parts of the business work on a effort reward balance, right? If you're in manufacturing, supposing you're making widgets, right? And you can make a widget for a cost of 1 cent. Now, if you can optimize the manufacturing process, maybe find a cheaper supplier, or get a better machine with higher productivity, or lay off a couple of people who are actually working on the production line, whatever, to reduce the cost of manufacture up until the point where the widget no longer fit for use, of course. I mean, we're assuming it's still fit for purpose. But otherwise, reducing the wastage, in inverted commas, of that system is pretty much universally seen as being a good thing, right? You've increased the efficiency of the system as a whole by looking at the component parts. Good thing. Pat on the back, you get a rise, you get a bigger BMW, expense account, a holiday in Aruba, everybody's happy.
Nice.
Okay? Thing is, marketing doesn't work that way. Marketing works on the basis of effectiveness. Now, if we say effectiveness, if we say, how can I say this? So, supposing we were saying that effectiveness, if we said the definition of effectiveness is how well we do something to achieve a particular goal, how successful we are in delivering what we set out to do. Okay? So it's not necessarily about how much we spent, but it's on the return of what we've spent over a predetermined length of time, customer size, number of customers, whatever metric we're using to measure that against. Okay? Efficiency, on the other hand, is a ratio. Efficiency is about reducing input to produce the same level of output. Do you see the difference, right?
Certain.
And that's the reason why we've got to the position where we have all of this noise, which isn't marketing, because there's no creative execution left to spend for the project. So it's like, like I said, it's royalty-free images into Canva templates. Now, don't get me wrong. I love the royalty-free image guys. They're wonderful. I love Canva. Wonderful company, right? As well as the other companies which are doing Canva-like work. Very good. They should be applauded. Okay. What these guys have done have allowed civilians, let's call them, to produce good enough work, right? Design wise, when, even sort of rudimentary animation, that sort of thing. It's just raised the bar of suckiness. There's less suck around. It's a technical marketing term, Joe. I won't expect you to understand.
Yes,
Right.
I'll look it up.
Okay. So that's great. But at the end of the day, it's a tool, right? So just like if I spent $500 and bought a set of of chef's knives, it doesn't make me Gordon Ramsay, does it? Right? If I spent 10 grand on a Hasselblad digital camera, I'm not the next Annie Leibovitz. Right? And this is where the whole argument falls down. It's not about the tool, right? You could use the same argument for AI, right? It's not about the tool, right? The tool is dumb. So unless we start re-looking at what we're actually trying to do, which is not create noise for ads which are cheap, the object of the exercise is quite simple. It's to sell more shit, right? It's not charity we're running, okay? And this is where people who call themselves marketers, I don't call them marketers, I call them people who call themselves marketers, right? This is where I think they get their knickers in a twist, because they're all about comments and likes and forwards and page views and all of this stuff, which is all great. But how does that translate into revenue? When you have your meeting with your financial director and you tell her that the last marketing campaign got 1,000 likes, what do you think she's going to say? Okay, So where are the sales that we can directly are directly attributable to the efforts that you've done, and how does that compare to doing nothing?
Not spending the money. Yeah.
Right? Because you have to have something to compare it to.
Sure.
Right? Now, it may be comparing it to the status quo, supposing we did nothing, or look back, the previous season or the previous year, or maybe you do like a geolocational test, right? So you do a mail drop in one postcode and not in another, and sort of measure it, whatever it may make sense. But you need to have a baseline to be able to compare it to, rather than say, oh yeah, well, we got 150 likes. Yeah, and okay, likes don't pay the bills, right? Would you like your salary in likes, or would you like it in US currency? And it's almost like sales is like a dirty word, right?
To a lot of small businesses, it is.
And that's why they're small businesses.
Yes. Gee, when small businesses, I work with a lot of tech firms, but just small businesses in general, when they're looking for a marketing agency, what questions should they ask? What should they be looking for?
I think it's a very good question. And I think the first thing is that the marketing agency should be asking a bunch of questions about the business. They should be asking about revenue, customer profile, average customer order value, what kind of attrition, how long do customers stay with the business? Is it like a long-term relationship that you can invest year on year, or is it sort of more transactional? All of these sort of things. Obviously revenues and profit margins and that sort of thing, but also the goals of the business. Okay, you're a business of this many people in this many places today. What's the goal 2, 3, 5 years down the road? Maybe there's an exit plan. What's the exit plan, right? To find out about the business, forget the marketing stuff, right? Because what we're doing, we're trying to solve a business problem, not a marketing problem. It's a business problem, which has happened to use marketing as a tool for that. So if you're a small business owner and you go to a marketing agency and the first thing out of their mouth is social media, Facebook ads, TikTok videos, etc., then in my opinion, you should turn 180 degrees and run very fast in the opposite direction. Run, Forrest, run. Right? Because these are the guys who are leading with tactics and are not spending any time on strategy. And it's a strategy that wins the game, not tactics. Tactics change, but strategy is for the long haul. Now, it's not sexy, strategy, unfortunately, which is why it sort of doesn't really get the headlines. There's no flashing lights and fireworks and explosions and car crashes and, Michael Mann films. It's not, it's not headline stuff. It's real grunt, down in the shit, mud under your fingernails work, right? To do the basic stuff, research, quant, customer segmentation, targeting, positioning, messaging, all of that sort of stuff. Before you do anything else, before you spend a cent on tactics. And especially small businesses don't do that because they think marketing is a tap that you can turn on and turn off. But the thing is, marketing is an echo. Right? What you do today in marketing can only be felt at a sales level weeks, months, sometimes years down the road. Equally, something that's affecting you now could be the result of something that you've done weeks or months ago. So that does mean that for a short time you can turn the tap off if you need to, because it's like if you need to stop an oil tanker, right? You have to plan ahead, right? But equally, you don't know whether you're going right or wrong until you've got through whatever sales cycle that may be. I remember having a conversation. I was speaking about this with somebody yesterday. I was having a conversation with a small business owner who was selling a pretty complicated technical product. You know, a lot of professional services, deployment, project management, all of that sort of stuff. And consequently, it was quite a large ticket sale. And as often is in those sorts of cases, these customer sales cycle was quite long. 3, 4, even 6 months is not unheard of. Okay. So, we took that on board and we sort of planned something out, and we put together a basic 36,000 feet view of how we saw the strategy being implemented, where to focus our time, what were the key missing elements we believed were not in place within the customer facing component for sales and marketing that needed to be addressed firstly, and everything else. And then the first thing out of his mouth was then, okay, so when do you think we'll see an ROI? I said, well, you've just told me your ROI is 6 months, right? You've already told me that it takes 6 months for you to close a sale. So I'm not going to change that. How am I going to change that? I'm not in charge of your product. All right. So how is it going to be any different? There's not a knee, it's not like when you go to the doctor and they hit your knee with a hammer and you get the instant reflex reaction, right? There's no, direct correlation that you can measure in microseconds. If your business takes 6 months to close a sale, it'll take 6 months to close a sale. But if we can get more meat in the funnel at the beginning so that more sausages pop out the other end, then that's the win. But if it's a complicated sale, it's a complicated sale. In the same way, if your product sucks, I can't do anything about that. If your product sucks, don't spend money on marketing, spend that money on making your product better. Because nothing will shift product better than a good product. The old days where we could sort of think we could hide the weaknesses of a product or service with like shiny suited salesmen with pencil thin moustaches and fake Rolexes, right? Those days are long gone.
Yeah.
Right? It's not Glengarry Glen Ross anymore, or Tin Men. Do you know Tin Men? The movie Tin Men.
I don't know.
Danny DeVito and Richard Dreyfuss. Okay. Not a very well known film, mid to late 80s, that sort of thing, right? It's about two door-to-door salesmen selling what you would call aluminum siding, but what I would call aluminium siding, right? Seriously, if you can get to rent it out, buy it, rent, whatever, it's a hilarious film about sales. Not as dramatic as Glengarry Glen Ross, which is the one that everybody remembers about sales.
Sure, steak knives.
Steak knives, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, you don't deserve those leads.
That's right.
Sign on the line that is dotted.
So, Gee, I started my business as a small business in the 90s. I was a technician that, got the bad idea to start a business, and I didn't know a lot about sales. I didn't know a lot about marketing. I had to learn the hard way, but I was working way too hard, 14, 16-hour days, was not paying attention to myself, my diet, stopped exercising. I got myself up to about 340 pounds, didn't even realize it. And the doctor said to me, if I don't lose this weight, I'm not going to see my daughter graduate. My daughter was just born. So I spent the next 7 months, lost about 130 pounds. People always ask me how, like there's some quick, just like with you with marketing, I'm sure, just make the new website and everything will be fine. They want some really quick answer to everything. But my one word answer as to how I did it is discipline. I got focused. I created a routine. I got disciplined about it. I wonder how discipline plays a role in your life, Jay.
Marketing, Joe. Marketing is like exercise. Right? Now, supposing I get up one more. I mean, I for the last sort of year or so, I've been going pretty crazy on health and exercise anyway, for various reasons. But supposing I got up tomorrow morning and I put a stick in the ground and said, I want to get fit, right? So I join a gym. I go to the gym and, I spend, I don't know, half an hour with some dumbbells and barbells and squats and whatever else. And then I spend 20 minutes on a treadmill, right? And then I go home and I get up the next day. Now, do I feel fitter? Do I feel lighter? Do I feel better about myself? Probably not. I probably feel like absolute shit, right?
So
I've got things hurting which I didn't know I even had, right? However, if I stick at it, after a couple of weeks, I start to see results.
Yeah.
Those weeks turn to months. Those months turn to, years. And so over time, the discipline of doing a little bit of marketing every day pays off exponentially more than do you see the analogy, right?
It took a while. I got there. Yeah.
You got there, right? Because I did think about this before we were having our call today. I thought, how can I bring this in, right, based upon your story, right? You like that, right? Yeah, I'm a marketer. What can I tell you? Okay, so incremental efforts over time produce exponentially bigger results. But at the same time, it doesn't work backwards. So if you change something about your regime, your diet, vitamins, the range of exercises you do, the weights that you do, okay, you shouldn't be looking at the wrong end of the telescope, right? You shouldn't be looking at a particular, if you had a bad day, you went to the gym, good for you, right? But to be honest, you didn't really give it everything, okay? You were going through the motions. You didn't really push yourself, this, that, and the other, right? But the point is not that you didn't push yourself to 11/10ths of what you could do. The point is you got off your ass and you went. That's the point. And in the same way, in marketing, if I worked out with a pair of dumbbells, okay, and I got really big arms, I couldn't say, do you know what? I've got 15-inch arms based upon that set of curls I did on the 23rd of March, 2023. Right? Doesn't work that way.
Right. Very good.
It's the implementation of easy to digest, easy to follow efforts on a regular basis. Exactly like getting healthy, losing weight, kicking an addiction, whatever. And we put too much stress on ourselves if we fall off the wagon for a day, right? I was just at a trade show in Germany last week, okay? I was at an Airbnb, so there was no gym, okay? But I was at a trade show, so I was walking a lot.
Yes.
A hell of a lot, okay? Yeah. Now, I walk quite a bit even when I'm at home. I do about... it's about 55 kilometers, which is what, about 35 miles, 40 miles, something like that, right? Yeah. So I do that on average. And so I was doing probably half that again every day at this trade show. But I was feeling guilty because I wasn't working out. But I was, right? And so when I saw my trainer today, he said, the point is that you didn't sit on your ass. That is the point.
Right.
The point is that you've adopted this habit into your daily ritual. just like you should adopt this habit into your daily business ritual. It's the same thing, right? It's compound interest, isn't it? All of what we're talking about, you can say it's compound interest, right? You know, when you're 25, you think, well, I'm not going to put $150 away. What's the $150? I'll wipe my ass with $150, right? But then 30 years later, you got $2 million because of the magic of compound interest. And it's the same thing for healthcare, and it's absolutely the same thing in business. It's very easy to say, okay, it's not working, whatever you're doing marketing wise. So you stop, whatever it may be. You're doing videos, you're doing blogging, you're doing podcasts, right? Whatever it could be, because whatever you're using to measure doesn't come up to the measurement time that you're actually looking at, whatever it may be. But like I said, you're looking at it through the wrong end of the telescope. You have to take a step back and start looking at it in aggregate rather than beating yourself up about a particular episode or a particular piece of creative or a particular campaign. How about that for an answer? What do you think?
Yeah, well done. Well done. Gee, what motivates you?
What motivates me? Myself. I'm my own worst enemy.
Really?
Oh yeah.
How so?
Oh yeah. I'm a bit of a nutter in that respect, Joe.
I don't know that term, nutter.
Nutter, a bit of a lunatic.
Ah.
Okay. So, for example, formal education. I got my degree. I was 3 years younger than anybody else in my class.
Wow.
It was a 3-year degree. I did it in 2. Right. I was, at the time, the youngest ever postgraduate at the university that I was at by about 20 years.
Wow.
Right. I have an eidetic memory. I can memorize
a deck of cards.
Pack deck of cards in order. I do shit like that. Okay. That doesn't mean that there's nothing to do with intelligence. It means I remember in images. Okay. During exams when I was at university, they would put me in a separate room because they were convinced I was cheating. Because the answers I would give would be verbatim the notes that the lecturer had written on the board.
Wow.
Even if the lecturer had made a mistake. If I was looking up I'd see a question on a question paper and I'd know the answer because I read it in the textbook. In my mind, I would open the textbook, turn the pages to find the answer and just write whatever I could read in that textbook in my mind.
Wow.
Okay. So I'm one of those guys. Okay.
Okay.
So now, like I said, this is nothing to do with intelligence. This is just memory, right? Yeah. It's training a parrot. Okay. It's verbatim regurgitation. Okay. But because of the experience I had with informalized education, I rebelled quite heavily against it. And I think that's one of the reasons why I teach now. Okay, I'm adjunct professor at 2 universities, business schools, where I teach marketing and behavioral science to final year MBAs. And I've been doing it now. Not the second school, but the first school I've been doing for over 10 years now, right? And I absolutely love it. It's fantastic, right? I absolutely love it. And any of my students will tell you they have never been in a class like mine, okay? Because There is colourful language, there is swearing, there is music, I'm jumping on tables, there's all sorts of shit going on, right? I have ad breaks in my lectures.
Nice.
I rattle on for 4 hours. It's like Fidel Castro of marketing, right? I just go for it, okay? And I'm still in touch with students even now, which I take as a huge compliment.
Yeah.
I'll get a call from a student saying, yeah, I was in your class 2 years ago. Can you send me the handouts that you did for about this subject? Because I'm having an argument with my boss and I remember you were discussing this and I'd really like to sort of throw this in their faces. This sort of stuff. Okay. Because what I teach is not stuff from textbooks. What I teach is because I don't think you can teach unless you've been at the coalface, right? You've got all of these people who've been in this academic bubble as a career, and they're no longer in touch with the real world, with the coalface, right? I live this shit all day, every day. And the reason why I got into this is because when I was employing interns, I was getting educated fools. They had all the certificates and diplomas and degrees and everything. I couldn't give them shit to do. Right? So they'd get like losers jobs, like cleaning databases and shit. And nobody wants to do that. So 10 years ago, a friend of mine, she said, look, they're looking for someone. And I said, I can't teach. What are you talking about? And she said, well, you're always moaning about the quality of graduates. Well, here's a chance for you to actually do something about it. Put your money where your mouth is. So I tried it and I liked it and I loved it. And I think that's where why I'm trying to instill this questioning the status quo in anything that these individuals do. Because my life this far has been about questioning the status quo, right? Nobody thought that I could do a degree at 17 years old. I did. Nobody thought I could do a postgrad at 19, and I did. Right? I ran a very successful post-production company in Southeast Asia for 3 years. There were 3 of us, and we were doing 7-figure turnovers. The 3 of us. I was working for companies like Nestle and BAT and Ford Motor Company, and I directed a TV commercial for Nestle. I was 25. So I don't know what no is, right? It's not a question of why, it's a question of why not. And that sort of is what drives me and what I want to instill in the characters of people that I can impart my information and experience of. Over the years I've taught, 5,000 people, whatever it may be. I don't know, multiply it by, class by 10. What does he get? And that's what drives me.
So given that motivation, how
curiosity
do you
drives me.
Yeah,
Curiosity drives me.
Yeah.
You think you have to be curious.
You do.
I always want to, you never want to play against me on Trivial Pursuit, right? Because I know a little bit about a ton of shit. Right? Scratch the surface and it's like IKEA furniture, right? You scratch the surface and very soon you hit chipboard, right? There's nothing there, right? But I can talk a good talk. Well, I'm in marketing, right? That's what we do, right?
So given that motivation, how do you measure success, G?
By looking in the mirror every morning.
And
liking or otherwise what I see. Right? I turn down probably 70% of the business inquiries that we get. We get a lot of inquiries, okay? We are SEO'd up the wazoo. I get probably 50 to 75 inquiries every week.
Wow.
Purely off Google. From small business owners and startups. And I turn down at least 70% of those.
Wow.
Why? Because something doesn't smell right. And we have 3 rules that need to be followed when we onboard a client. And if the client doesn't meet those 3 rules, don't take them on. Plus, even if they do meet those 3 rules, because we're a small agency, right? We're 19 people, okay? Even if they meet those 3 rules, everybody who's going to be working on that account in the agency has to buy into that, what that company is doing, why they're doing it, what it's all about. Because we have to pick and choose, because it's not like a big agency where you have an A team or a B team, right? With us, you have the team. That's the team you get, right? You don't have like the key account people and the lower account. No, it's everybody. So we have finite resources. We have obviously, certain hours in the day, and we want to work on fun stuff. And more than importantly, we want to work with fun people. Because when we started the agency in 2008, at that time there were 3 of us. The single biggest rule that we had, all 3 of us had the same rule, is that we refused to work for arseholes. Because throughout our working life, we had either worked with or for arseholes. And so now we choose not to. So it is an arsehole-free zone. If you're an arsehole, I don't
So you have an
want your
asshole
business.
with a red circle and a line through it.
There you go. Yeah. No arseholes allowed.
Yeah.
And to keep me humble,
Yeah.
over the years, I could take back what I was going to say, because what I was going to say was, over the years, I've got to be able to smell an arsehole. And that is not what I meant to say at all.
Yes,
right.
Yes.
Over the years, I have arsehole radar. Right. And I can sense very quickly if the person is not going to, if we're not going to be a good fit for that particular person. Because it's never about the company, it's always about the individual. Right? But to keep me humble, every now and again, one of those will slip through the net and give me the spanking of my life and keep me on my toes. And that's good, because you can't be complacent, right? And the world's turning and always changing. And we'd rather focus on making a difference, creating a tangible, needle-moving difference for like-minded individuals. People who take their work seriously but don't take themselves seriously. Business owners who are not precious about what they've created and are open to hearing criticism, constructive criticism, based upon 25 odd years of experience. And it's not about me tearing you down and telling you your baby's ugly. It's not about that. Right? Some business owners can hear that. A lot of business owners aren't ready for that. In which case, that's fine. We're not right for everyone, and that's absolutely fine. I'm very happy with that.
Gee, thank you so much for your time. I was so excited to set this up, and really, really love your insights and your very direct attitude towards marketing. It's very refreshing, and I know it can help a lot of businesses and a lot of people as well. Anybody listening, how can we get in touch with you?
Easiest way to get in touch with me is LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn. Strangely enough, Joe, there's only one Gee Ranasinha on LinkedIn. Who'd have thunk?
Oh, really?
Right? Yeah. So you can find me on LinkedIn. Otherwise, obviously, you can go to the website, Kexino, KEXINO.com. The group email is hello@kexino.com, which comes to me and a number of other colleagues. So I'll get to see it. So those are probably the 2 easiest ways of getting hold of me. And let's have a chat, right? Even if it leads nowhere, even if it leads me to point you in a direction which is away from me, right? The last thing I want you to do is to waste your money on Marketing Bros,
Right.
right?
You
You know
love
what I mean
marketing.
by a marketing bro,
You
right?
love marketing bros. That's for
Okay.
sure.
Marketing Bros. You know those
Yes.
guys who
Yes.
crouch down throwing gang signs in front of Lamborghinis, right?
Yeah.
Those guys,
Yeah.
right? Because those guys will take your money and run
Right.
and screw you over,
Yeah.
right? And they're the same thing. Yesterday they were selling crypto and NFTs and
Mm.
multi-level whatever, and tomorrow they'll be selling AI or whatever else they think they can make a quick buck at, right? So keep away from ourselves and keep away from Marketing Bros.
There you go.
Yeah.
Gene, thank you so much, G. I look forward, if I'm ever in your neck of the woods, I'd love to get together and have a cup of tea.
Why not? Or maybe even something stronger. Who knows?
Let's see where the day takes us. Gee, thank you so much. You be well.
Thanks for the invitation, Joe. Delighted to be invited.
Cheers. Thank you for listening and or viewing Joey Pinz Disciple Conversations. Please share this episode with one or two of your friends who you think may benefit from the episode. Our website, www.joeypins.com. There you'll find lots of resources and you could join our mailing list. Please follow us on all our social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Podcast information, the video version of our podcast is on YouTube. Please subscribe. Audio is on all major podcasting platforms. Please follow them. And if you like it, please consider giving 5-star rating. Would really appreciate that. Thank you again for listening or watching Joey Pinz Disciple Conversations.